Okay, we're back. This time, instead of using Amazon's CloudFormation way of doing infrastructure as code, we're going to switch gears and use the open source Terraform solution, which is multi-cloud and seems to be gaining in popularity. So there's a couple of prerequisites if you're going to follow along this on your own. One is you're going to need, and the links are in the article, right? One, you're going to need the AWS Command-Line Tools, and so AWS is the Command-Line Tools, and you're also going to need Terraform itself, and I've already installed that, Terraform. And interesting enough, I just installed this a couple days ago fresh, and it's already out of date, but I guess it's changing rapidly. So those are the prerequisites, in addition to having your Amazon account from before, right? And just to remind you, our initial state pretty much is a clean environment, right? I have my VPC. I just have the default VPC right now. I've kind of undone all the Elastic Beanstalk and the Terra and the previous CloudFormation work, right? In terms of, and we don't have anything running in terms of EC2 instances. We're basically got a blank slate here, okay? Now what we're going to do in the end, however, when we run our script, we're going to end up building the network that we saw previously. So that's from the last example, we had basically a VPC, some subnets, some route tables, and network ACLs, right? Basically making these three different availability zones that each had public public subnets, right? This time we are going to expand on that though, do the same thing in Terraform, and then we're going to create, in addition to that, a security group to house our EC2 instances, right? Basically, it has access, basically opens up port 80 to the world. And then in there, we're going to create an auto-scaling group that basically spins up, just right now, just one instance per availability zone, right? So we'll have three different instances kind of being managed by an auto-scaling group. And then we're going to front end those three instances using an application load balancer. And then we can actually hit the load balancer and see our web page. Now, as it alluded to, we're not going to do a Python example because it turns out that's more complicated, and we'll talk about that later. For now, we're just going to spin up a basic web server and shows basically a hello world page. Okay, so that's kind of where we're going. Let's look at the configuration itself. Close this down, and let me minimize this. Let me go into my project here. CD documents, CD to-dos RS, Terraform. Okay. Okay, it's fairly long. And I'm going to skim it. Of course, it's linked in the article. This is available, right? The beginning part of this should be somewhat familiar because it's basically the same thing we did with CloudFormation. We basically built a VPC, some subnets, internet gateway, route tables, route table. We associate this with route tables, and then we set up a network ACL. And so from here on, this is new. So, and I don't want to go through all the details, but generally this is the configuration for the security group. These sections here are basically setting up the load balancer, not load balancer. It's setting up actually the auto scaling group first with a particular configuration. And you can see, if you squint at this, you'll see what we're basically doing is on these EC2 instances, we're basically just running some commands on them when they first start up to basically install Apache and load this is a web server 01 file on it. So that's what's essentially through the auto-scaling group. And then the rest of the business here is setting up the load balancer. And this is basically setting up a load balancer in each of the subnets. And they're pointing at basically the group, the target group of the EC2 instances that the auto-scaling group is creating. So kind of a lot going on there. The diagram is super helpful. Again, this is Terraform. This is not a training course on Terraform. This shows you kind of conceptually an approach to this problem. So I'm going to close out of this, and we are going to launch our infrastructure. So the way you do this is, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to say Terraform Plan, right, after you have your configuration. And this, by the way, this is linked in the article too. You can download this. And this is set up, by the way, up against US East in particular. I think there's some hard dependencies in here for US East 1. I can't remember off the top of my head. It may not be, actually. Basically, if I run this, it's going to basically build out 16 resources. Basically, it's basically everything in that file gets basically built out. So this is kind of telling you what it thinks it should do. And let's go ahead and apply it. Terraform Apply. It's going to recalculate out, again, what it thinks it should do. It's going to give me a chance to accept it. And then it's going to do it. So say yes and push enter. And what you'll start seeing is it starts telling you what it's doing. It's creating the VPC, it's creating the subnets, route tables, blah, blah, blah. Now, I think this will, most of the things take pretty quick, but I believe the launch configuration and the load balancer take like up to 5 minutes to build. So I'm going to pause it, and I'll keep track of the time, and I'll let you know how long it takes. So I'm going to pause the video, and then I'll tell you how long it's going to take. Okay, we're back. It took about 4 minutes or so, and you can see that the apply completed, adding 16 resources. You know, lots of detail in here. Let's go look real quickly at the console and see what we have here. First thing, the networking components. You'll see, and again, I'll look quickly, new VPC. There's a new ACL, new internet gateway, new internet security group. There's actually 2 new security groups. There's 2 new route tables, right? A bunch of stuff. Either way, under the EC2, you'll see that there is 3 new instances. There's a new load balancer. So we see that basically that's all working. Let's look at the load balancer real quick, and you can see. Actually, what we'll do is we'll look at the targets. Let's see how it looks. Target groups. If we look at the targets, passing. So it looks like it is, oh, it's passing. So there are 3 healthy targets, right? Basically, the web servers are running. And if we go to the actual description, copy the, where is it, description? Oh, not target group. I want to go to the load balancer itself. Load balancer itself, and copy the DNS name. I think I copied it. And then if I paste that here, if I enter, it will hit one of the 3 EC2 instances and serve up the Hello World page. So looks like it's all working, right? That's good. Let's talk a little about the problems that we didn't solve here, right? And then this will lead into the next section. So the first problem is the in the configuration. Let's see if I can bring it up here. You know, right now the way we're serving up the code is we're just taking a. Let's see if I can find it. Here's a long configuration. We're basically taking your basic Amazon AMI, their Amazon to Linux AMI, just right out of the box. And then we're running this command right here to basically build a very basic web server on that box, right? So did some reading, setting up Python in a production kind of configuration, you know, requires setting up a web server like Nginx. There's probably a bunch of configuration there to harden it. Then you have to integrate it with Python. There's this, anyway, it's a non-trivial activity. So either that's going to be a huge long script here, or you're going to build your own AMI image and then, you know, use that as your starting point for your build. That's the first thing you got to do. Then, you know, and then after that, you're going to have to then think about maintaining over time, those running images, right? Because there's security patches. You're going to have to either roll out new ones, or you're going to have to do something. Either you're going to patch them in place, or you're going to have to deal with like building new AMIs and rolling those out. That's another whole round of effort. And then last thing, you have to figure out how to deploy the codes. And once you kind of have a shell of a Python environment, then you're going to have code that's continuously changing, like daily, and you're going to need to push that into your you're running EC2 instances. And for that, you may be using something like code deploy to automate that process so it's not so tedious. So, there's a fair amount of work here in maintaining sort of your Python environment with EC2 instances. So rather than going down that path for a long time, I'm going to completely pivot using Docker containers. It will solve some of these problems for me, and also gives us a chance to explore Docker containers to deliver essentially our final solution, hopefully, which is a Python backend again. So that's basically it for this video, and again, look forward to looking at Amazon's approach to doing Docker containers.